Welcome to the Uncollared podcast. I'm Father Jason.
And I'm Frank Fontana. And on this show, we believe there's something powerful in the search for the truth.
No topic is too big or too small. No questions are off limits.
And that is a good thing because I like to question everything.
So settle in and join us for some laughs and some deep thoughts. And
maybe even some enlightening moments here and there.
We sure hope so.
Yeah.
This is the
Uncollared podcast. Father, today we're like literally on the edge of the cliff, and I'm going to ask you a question that might just send us over the edge.
Ooh, exciting.
Yes. The question is,
okay.
Does God forgive everybody? Like a blanket pardon like Biden, just pardoning everybody. Does God subscribe to the same philosophy?
Complete pardon, right? What is that called? Apostolic blessing, I guess you could say. Complete wipe out.
I take your word for it. I have no idea what that means.
Whatever that means. Have you heard of the concept Jubilee? Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, in a generic context.
Yeah. What do you know of a Jubilee?
So
a year of Jubilee.
Like fun, like forgiveness, excitement, revival.
Okay.
Is any of that bad?
Yeah, no, it's so actually this is a year of Jubilee.
2025?
So, yeah, 2025. So in the church, the Catholic Church, every 25 years they have a Jubilee, and that concept is actually a Jewish term. There's so back in the day when the Jews
a Jubilee.
Well, I don't know. That's a good joke. I don't know exactly where it comes from specifically, but it's very part of the Jewish culture. You know, just like the bar mitzvahs and things like that. So the year of Jubilee, I don't know for them if it was every 10 years, but there would be a certain amount of years and everything would be forgiven. So on a human level, so like say you owed someone 5 cows. So everyone was ready for the Jubilee
debts
year.
Were abolished?
Yes, debts were abolished for that. So I guess for the Catholics, we took that on the spiritual term and did that for also sins and things like that.
Mm.
So going back to your question, does God forgive everything? Yes and no. You know, so
okay. Let's set up a scenario.
It's a big question.
It is a big question.
It's a big question, yeah.
Because if you think about a serial killer.
Okay.
Who murders 50 people, cold-blooded. And then you're going to tell me he's going to go see a priest and wipe
Boom.
all the sins away and you're good?
Yeah, right.
And then he's going to go to heaven and he's fine, but yet he killed all those people? So
we discussed a little bit earlier about the vision I have of God, which is a relational one.
Hmm.
You know, we also spoke a little bit of God as energy and harmony,
okay.
Right? But so I'm going to use God as a father. You know, that's the Christian prayer. I think almost everyone accepts it. Even the Jews believe, Abba, Father.
Mm.
So as a father, would you forgive, sorry for not to answer your question directly, but would you forgive everything of your own kids? So that's a yes and no too, right? Like
if you put it that way, it makes it a little more challenging, right?
Yeah.
As a father, I want to do everything to protect my children.
Right.
And would I be okay with him murdering 50 people? Probably not.
Yeah.
Would I still somewhere in my heart have to love him and
right.
try to protect him in any way? Of course. I'm not the one that needs the forgiving, though. Like the families of those people murdered would need the forgiving. Really more than I would. Mine would just be acceptance that my son is a psycho killer.
Right.
So
you would want for him what is just, right? So say he is, sorry to throw this on your son,
right.
whom we love.
Right.
But that he's mentally sick. He's a serial killer. So the most out of love, you'd probably bring him to a psych ward. Restrain
right.
him,
right?
Maybe put him on meds like that. That as a father that's like cutting your kidney out. Like
sure.
You wouldn't want. I mean, it's your blood, it's your DNA. You wouldn't want that, but at the same time, this is the absolute best. You talk to the doctors. This is the only way out of it.
Wait, hold on. Did you
know?
ever see The Godfather?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Classic.
So Italians do things a little differently.
Okay. Okay.
So Michael Corleone
Okay.
goes on a rampage, kills the other boss.
Yeah.
Obviously, like insane, right? Like
Yep.
that's a crazy scene. They're in the the cannolis, leave the gun, take the cannolis, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what did the Godfather do? What did his father do? He didn't send him to a psych ward and put him on medication. What did he do? He sent him to Italy
Yeah.
to go hide out with the other Italians in the mountains,
Yeah.
where he meets Apollonia and his
Yeah.
whole life takes off.
Okay.
So, I mean, is there that? Do you know?
Well,
like,
there's different ways. I mean, I like how we're using them as a point, the movie as a point of like morality.
right. Yeah.
But I get what you're trying to say. Like there's not just a cookie cutter way of approaching forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about motherhood and fatherhood. There's no rule book. There's no like, 100, follow these things. And that's what some people think of the Catholic Church, like 10 Commandments, where we're not a religion of rules and precepts. If you just do these things, you're going to be saved. It's more of a relationship. So if faith does, if your spirituality doesn't allow you to become more relational, well, then I would say, you know what, your spirituality sort of stinks.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you. That's really nice.
Yeah.
So not you, but so in regards to forgiveness, when I say to you, would you forgive your son or your daughter or your own children or your wife? Some things yes, some things no, and then there needs to be justice applied, because in the end, the question is love. Forgiveness is a dimension of love.
Did you say there need to be justice applied?
Absolutely, justice needs to be applied, because it's part of that. I guess the structure of love. Love without justice is feelings.
So if my wife hurts my feelings or does something really mean to me,
Okay.
She's
not here, by the way. She's not listening, right?
I can have justice, is what you're saying, or she can have justice on
Well,
me.
as long
does
as
that take the form of I'm going to treat you like crap, or I'm going to do something mean to you, or I'm not going to cook for you tonight, or like,
well,
is that what you mean by? I'm just trying to understand justice in that context.
Okay, so these different virtues that we're complementing one is not exclusive of the other. You can't live pure justice. Have you heard of the movie, I guess, or the book, Les Mis?
Yeah.
So Javert, the cop. So he was all about justice. He lived every rule, but in the end, he committed suicide. Like he was just a failure to himself. And because he saw in Jean Valjean, he saw that even though he was a crook, that he was more complete and wholesome than Javert, who was all about the law and pursuing it no matter what. So in the case that you brought up your spouse, I mean, I would say it is wrong to just do things that are just without context, without a connection. And that's a little bit of maybe all these rights and things about police, like hating the police and stuff.
Defunding the police.
Yeah, I think is it anybody's fault? I'm just trying to point out, I guess, as a priest, the lack of relationship in that. Like some people don't see the good that the cops do. And they just see the justice system of it. Why do people love firemen more than policemen, at least nowadays?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I wanted to be a cop growing up, but because they see the firemen help, they're saving, they're EMTs, they're more supportive.
Yeah.
But when justice is implemented, I mean, the police represent all of us, all the taxpayers.
Sure.
Well, I don't pay taxes, but they represent you. But in the sense that, you know what I mean? Like justice without a relationship becomes like, oh, these guys are just pigs. And that's not true, So
let's bring it down a notch from serial killer to justice on a different level as it comes to atoning to God, right?
Okay.
So the Grammys just were on the other night.
Right.
Okay. And my wife makes a comment to me that I'm like watching it, I'm cringing, like crawling out of my skin at the outfits, the things they're saying, it's just the overall vibe of the show was like medieval to me. It was like demonic and like dark and like to a point where I had to walk away and shut it off.
Yeah.
And she did eventually too.
Okay.
And because like, what made it that way was these singers barely dressed, let's just say,
Okay.
almost like Kanye West's wife, basically disrobed in front of an entire audience of photographers. She had some kind of skimpy sheer thing on, but she was virtually naked
Right.
in the middle of public and all that stuff. Whatever, like it's a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, got them more Googles searches than the actual Grammys.
That's crazy.
But he's smart. He's a brilliant marketer. But then you got people like Lady Gaga, and like she's out there with a new song that's all about like hell and God. And in one scene, she's dressed in like blood red with spikes coming out of her. And then, the next scene, she's in like an angelic white. And then during the show, she's singing with another singer. And she's like literally in trance, like moving around in this bizarre, possessed fashion, dark hair, dark eyeliner. What message is that sending to the kids watching this?
It's crazy.
And then if you, not to keep rambling here, but the entire industry.
Yeah.
This year and in the last year, more than ever, has been exposed for so much corruption and so much manipulation and programming of the youth that it's now not the same world. Like the music we once knew has become a vehicle for programming children.
Sad, right?
Do you forgive this industry? Do you forgive these people who are knowingly going out there and corrupting the minds of youth? And so my point is, my wife goes, "You sound like an old man." I'm like, well, fine. Then I do sound like an old man. And as I'm doing that, Jaden Smith walks out with this. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see
Will
any of the
Smith's
Grammys.
son.
Okay.
The most bizarre, ridiculous. I got to show you
Yeah,
this.
show me that.
Okay.
I saw some clips, but I didn't see it. Oh,
on the runway. You know what it is?
Castle over his head?
It's Dracula's castle, the vampire castle over his head. He wore this the entire night. Okay.
Why did he do that?
You tell me, Father. That's what I'm asking for answers. Is like, what's normal about this?
Well,
and what are you saying? Like, what are the kids saying to the,
I like your point of, the industry has always been, especially in modern days, especially after the whole sexual revolution in the 60s, and just everything starts flipping upside down with Woodstock. And, that's when Vatican II came and assassinations and, Martin Luther King, like the whole world was just flipped. So I would say from there, we had this whole cultural revolution. One thing is to have that interiorly, identity, I guess you could say. But then to your point, like almost instructing that to the youth. Now that's diabolical. Like, okay, one thing is how messed up one is, but to promote it, I mean, that's scandal pretty much.
Absolutely. So on one of the biggest platforms on every network, social media, just blasting it out.
So why? Let's ask this. Why did you watch the Grammys? Like, you're in the media world, so I imagine, you want to keep up to date a little bit of how people are presenting art and. Who?
Not really.
Oh no!
My wife
I was just wondering why.
Okay. She wanted to see a couple of her favorite stars, and vis-a-vis of that, I kind of got sucked into it watching this. But then it got so like bizarro world that I was like, oh my god, what's coming next? Yeah. What is the next celebrity going to do? What are they going to wear? And you get sucked into it, and like even knowing all this, I still got more of the voyeuristic. Like, can you believe this?
Right.
This is what they're doing and saying and acting like, and so. Am I considered an old fogey then because of that, or am I just like, part of me is like, okay, like I've changed in life.
Yeah.
And
I think you're calling out something that I think a kid, if you brought a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old to see something like that, they would be very confused. They would be what's going on. So definitely we're tapping into the same thing, conscience. Yeah. That something's not right here. But what has happened in the modern world is we've given context to weird things. Like we see something weird and all of a sudden, oh, that's because of where I don't know if you've noticed some of these cartoons, like there is no more thing as a villain. Like all the villains have had their past stories.
Yeah. Now they're heroes.
Now they're heroes.
Crazy.
So the philosophy nowadays is as long as we can give context to what's going on, then everything is okay.
So as long as it's explainable in some capacity, which if we go deep down the rabbit hole, who owns the media?
Yeah.
Right? you have to go ask those questions. Who owns the media to be able to drive the narratives, to tell the stories that they want to tell, to make villains become heroes?
Right.
Because you're right. That's exactly what's happening.
Going on, yeah.
Right. And I can tell you who owns those is BlackRock. BlackRock Capital.
Okay.
They're the largest investment company in the world. They're $1 trillion in assets. They own every single media outlet. And guess what? When they want a narrative driven, hello, can you talk about COVID-19 and make it the worst thing in the world? Sure. Okay, cool.
The good thing, Frank, is that they don't own you, so we're good, right?
No, but they do a damn good job of influencing our children.
Yeah.
And everywhere you turn, because they don't just own the news media, traditional media and newspapers. They own the internet. They own social media. Wow. They own, so it's
we need a whole episode on just that, right?
Yeah,
propaganda,
completely.
I guess you could say.
Yeah, propaganda. That's
a
real thing.
Yeah.
Like people, they box it in conspiracy stuff, but it's real.
Right. So going back a little bit to our topic about forgiveness and influence, especially in the Grammys, which I didn't watch. I mean, I do enjoy music and I like to sing and things like that. But
did you see the Kanye West?
I saw some clips on social media. I saw some clips and I was like, this is strange. I guess he wasn't even invited. I don't know. I don't know the whole
details,
story.
But when you see that, what does that make you feel?
Well, it as a priest, I'm always asking in my heart, what's the motivation? Is it, like, to your point, is it marketing? If it is marketing, he's a genius. Like, it worked.
It totally worked.
It worked. I mean, it was immoral maybe, but it worked.
Yeah.
Is it maybe he wants more influence, more power? Is it vanity? People are driven for deeper reasons. That there's wounds in the past. There's ambitions. So as a priest, I always try to go to why do people? What's the deeper motivation in all this?
Yeah.
So the Grammys in general, why are people so bizarre? I don't know if it's only just trying to get attention, or, I mean, it is when people are edgy and you come off as some type of figure, like his friends. So Jaden is his name, Jaden Smith.
Jaden, yeah.
Like his buddies, or people are gonna be like, "Why did you wear that?" And they want a whole story. So his motivation is, I want more of my identity. I'm making this up.
Yeah.
He's like, my dad is famous. I think his mom's famous too, right? Is it?
Yeah, but there's some
different
wild
things.
stuff.
Yeah. So anyways,
that goes on.
But like, maybe he's like, I'm tired of being in the shadow of my parents or whoever. So I'm just going to do something nuts to be, and people do this even with like the faith in my department. People will say, Father, I'm going through this and that. And they're not really going, they just want, you figure that really soon, like in confession, where people's deeper motivations are. And I mean, we are broken.
Would you generally say that industry is lacking God? Because they all.
Oh, absolutely.
They used to go up there and the first thing they do is like, I want to thank God for this moment. And you start to see a lot less of that. As a matter of fact, you start to see artists like with upside down crosses, making satanic symbols up on stage, doing the whole Illuminati thing.
Right.
Like, is this real? Is this not real? Like, it's hard to ignore the fact that there is like Lady Gaga was caught on camera talking to another celebrity. I forgot who she was. They were at a party and they literally passed each other and did one of these things to each other and said, "Hail Satan."
Wow.
She's outwardly worshiping Satan, and so is majority of Hollywood. And again, I could go really deep into this stuff. I don't know if you want to, but going back to our topic of forgiveness, it's like when an industry is so corrupt and Hollywood is so corrupt down to it, because nobody makes it unless you sell your soul to the devil. Nobody. The Rock, none of these guys make it to that A-list status where you're in the $1 billion revenue range unless you are doing something for the man. Right? Knowing that they're manipulating our kids, making movies that are programmed and all this kind of stuff. How do you forgive an entire industry? How do you forgive a celebrity? How do you even want to at that point? Right.
I know that we have a phrase, at least with our spiritual group, in Regnum Christi, it's the logo of some of our schools actually. It's bonum vince malum, which is good conquers evil. So the concept is like in chess, when your king is getting attacked, like you don't just keep trying to defend it more, but you go on the attack. You give pressure to the other side. So do we try to save or do we try to address? I mean, some people are called to that. Some people, I would say people that are in the industry already, maybe in Hollywood and things, or directors, the whole, like Mel Gibson, what he tried to do, he got chewed out for that. Was it his producer, Steve McEvedy, when they produced The Passion of the Christ? I mean, he got...
You're actually right, because there is this huge Christian-based filming movement that's going on that...
In the Chosen series, have you seen any of the Chosen series?
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah. So in other words, I think if we almost create another Hollywood, I mean, some people are like, "Father,
it's happening."
Those fires in California, was that God trying to say something?
Good point.
I'm like,
is it?
I'm no comment there, right? It's okay to. It's. I just saw.
Do any part of you think that that's God's wrath?
I don't think God. Well, the first thing we said today is God is. For me, God is Father. So would you take away a toy of one of your kids if he's not doing his homework? Well, probably.
Yeah.
But would he? So I don't want to say yes completely, but yes and no. He just doesn't punish us, but he does have a plan set for us to become better. Mm. And the other crazy piece to it is that he gives us so much freedom that, I mean, he's not gonna. You don't want your own kids to just do everything you want them that you tell them. You want them to be their own individuals.
Challenging.
And you're going to give them, hey, think about this college, or these are the friends that I want you to think. And if they choose one of them, great. And if not, you're going to be thinking, okay, well, what in this can I accept? Now, if they choose something bad for themselves, well, you're going to try to influence that, even in a way that's manipulative, as you could say, to get them to think elsewise until it becomes disrespectful.
Right.
So does God forgive these people, such in the Hollywood industry? I think the question is rather the people that do know what is good. What is God telling us to do with them?
Yeah.
So if you feel passionate about calling it out, not you individually, but some people do need to expose because the truth always will prevail. Other people feel called to start their own sort of movie studios.
And there's a good handful that are happening now.
Some people, you mentioned Black Rock. Yeah. Like, I don't know who's the owner,
it's
whatever.
A conglomerate of investors.
Yeah. So let's get a whole bunch of good investors to start, processing that. I know there's a lot of incredible actors and actresses that get stuck because they don't know. They're like, well, I want to make it to the big stage, but Hollywood's the only big platform right now. Yeah. So I love how there's like the Oscars and things, other countries are winning some of those. So maybe because America, we are losing that faith-based, and we were founded on these faith-based principles. We're sort of trying to walk away from that. Yeah. I think in the last several administrations ago, it's like, well, we aren't a Christian country, and I'm like, I don't know about that. We were sort of founded on those principles there, right. So maybe other countries that are more faith-based can produce and get more prestige. Like right now in the world, the number one, being a missionary priest, and looking Asian, they don't know that I'm American. Right. So there's a lot of arguments when I'm around about, America, United States, this and that, and I sort of play the card like, I'm Asian, So, but the arguments, the best argument is like someone needs to be number one, and right now it's United States. Someone needs to be number one, and it's Hollywood right now.
Right.
So it will.
I don't know so much anymore. I think that, they're getting knocked off their rung, little by little, and I think the exposure that this current administration has provided and the internet has provided are really the Diddy case. I don't know if you're following the P. Diddy case.
I've heard. Yeah.
That's exposing a lot. Jeffrey Epstein. That was so big for a minute, and then the powers that be squash it. But I do believe it's going to actually come back around. Right. And you're going to see a lot of these Hollywood elites on those lists that participated in some really evil things that need to be brought down.
Right.
I think once that exposure goes on that level, I think we're going to see a mass awakening of the system being bucked and things really starting to change for the better. And I'm not gonna let this slide. And you may not like what I'm about to say, but I do believe the current Pope has participated in sowing doubt in the Catholic community by some of his decisions he's made and statements he's made regarding transgenders in the church, inviting drag queens to throw a party at the Vatican, like the mixed messaging. And I am not anti-gay by any means. I'm just looking at principles, saying if this is what you're preaching, how are you going against this? What message are you sending to the world and the people he's involved in and all that? Like, there's so much stuff about the Vatican and the Pope that are just, makes you go, something's fishy here. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So, I don't know if we've concluded with the Hollywood father, the forgiveness aspect, but I see it
ties into it because
I see it's related,
totally related. Because for me to question Catholicism is also coming back to, could I forgive this Pope? Not every Pope has been like this guy,
right?
So for me to forgive and forgive the Catholic religion enough to want to go, okay, I can look past this.
Yeah,
I forgive it. I don't know if I quite do yet. It's super confusing messaging to me.
Right.
And he's the father figure.
Yeah, the Holy Father. The Holy Father.
Right. And he's supposed to represent the almighty guy, the guy with the closest, connection to the big guy.
So let me ask you this. Is forgiveness something that's of the other person or of ourselves when we forgive? Or forgiveness in general? Does it need to require both people? Or is it one person?
Well, I would need to be able to forgive the actions of the other person.
So it's more of
it's on me.
It's on the individual,
right,
to forgive.
Right.
So I would say that's the essence of our solution. Does God forgive Hollywood? I mean, God
should he,
is
though? Should he even?
Should he? So
they get what they deserve.
So if God is Father and we are his children, technically that's a principle that I believe in and that I try to live by. We should almost see the Holy Father as a father figure, a spiritual father figure. If your dad abused you or cheated on your mom, there's a certain type of anger that you would have justly.
Yeah.
But should you forgive him or not?
I don't know if I could. Honestly,
depending on
the extremity of the situation.
Maybe not you, but as a principle, should we try to live by forgiveness or not, or mercy? Like there's the extreme of, I would say, mercy on one end and justice on the other. There's and love encapsulates all of it. If we're too merciful, no good.
Right.
If we're too just, no good.
Yeah.
There needs to be in every situation a prudence to what is, I guess, harmony. People say balanced.
Yeah.
I don't think virtue's balanced, but I would say more harmony.
Yeah.
So if you're at peace, not forgiving someone, you're where you need to be right then.
But can you really be at peace if you don't forgive somebody?
Depending on the person. So right now, your reaction to Hollywood, as long as you tell your kids, hey, we're not watching the Grammy, we're not watching the movie, and you're okay with that. You're like, well, my kids are just going to be weird.
Definitely like that's how we've solved it. Is like our kids know about programming.
But imagine if you're like, hey, tell your son, we're not going to watch soccer anymore because they promote this and that.
That would be a problem.
That's sort of my point. That's what I'm point. Like, there's extremes because some people of faith like take away. If there's we're not going to shop at CVS because they support whatever. Like, well, then what? Or this self like Verizon supports this, so we're not going to. So we can only do flip phones, and the kids are like, they turn into, you totally shelter them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's real harmony there, between mercy and justice. So speaking of the Holy Father, do we forgive him or not? I mean, we can't just, okay, you know what? The Pope and the Church is completely wacko because they've supported whatever, blessing gay couples or individuals. That's totally confusing. So I'm just going to not go to church. Well, I don't know if that's I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying sometimes people have that conclusion. I'm like, that's not a very peaceful conclusion you have.
But it's just mixed messaging. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're asking people to dive full into the faith, donate money, do all these things, be devout, follow the rules.
Right.
but then I'm not going to really follow the rules. Like I'm just going to go along with what society is pressuring me to do. And that's what I feel like he did, is like, it was so strong, the LGBT movement said that they needed to infiltrate the church.
Right.
And they have. Now there's gay priests all over the country, which again, I have no issue with. My issue is with the mixed messaging. Right. That's it.
Yeah. I would, maybe this is a whole nother podcast. I don't know how we're doing with time, but
how we doing with
time? We
got about 5
few minutes.
Yeah.
But maybe we can talk about that specifically in another one.
Do that.
But the beautiful thing of our Catholic faith is like, we don't have to take everything into consideration. There's thousands and thousands of devotions that me as a priest, like some of them I don't even know about, and some of them I've done, and I'm like, I'm not really comfortable with this. So even a spiritual dude like me, like, there's Catholic things that I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah.
So do you have to be a huge Pope fan and I have him underneath, type thing, like, yeah, Pope fan. You don't have to do that to be Catholic. Like, this is very Catholic of us to be able to just throw truths out there and talk about it.
Yeah. And
for you to be humble to listen to that. I mean, it's almost like we should have started with prayer, like we got the fire going, but there are so many Catholic things, different saints, different devotions, pilgrimages. There's something for everyone.
That makes sense to me, right? I could look at that and go, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not what you've always been taught, because always been taught like the Pope is the end all be all. He's the representation, the closest thing to God you could get.
Yeah. False.
Right.
False.
So great. We just debunked something today, folks, that if you are questioning this, we have an answer now.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel a little better. It's like, okay, right. I could take him off the table,
right,
but still believe in the faith.
Right. Obviously, the principles, that he is the Holy Father, he is legitimate authority. They're on faith and morals. When he pronounces something doctrinal, we have to listen to that. So
even if you disagree with it.
Yeah, but very rarely do they speak just about doctrinal stuff. So if he says Argentina is the best soccer team in the world, feel like, yeah, go fly a kite, Pope. Like, nice try. Yeah. But like, we don't have to stick on that. So this could be a political move of the Holy Father reaching out to these communities, because he is everyone's pastor. Yeah. So even those who believe something else, I mean, he's also their spiritual father. And so maybe he's, some Catholics, I say, well, you know what? Right now, he might not be your go-to spiritual father. He might not be the one where you're feeding and enjoying what he's writing, because he's not. It's like, imagine having 10 kids and some of them are adopted. Like right now, the adopted kids need more attention right now, or the ones that are a little sicker. And then you're there saying, "Oh, Dad never talks to me.
Yeah.
He doesn't like me. He doesn't go to my sports game." Well, because Billy over here is going through an operation.
Sure.
Dad needs to be with him right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the relation analogy.
Yeah.
If we really see people as brothers and sisters or spiritual fathers, like, I think it creates a better. There's some pedagogy in a relationship of a family. That's why families are so important.
Yeah.
Because everyone understands what a family is.
Totally.
So
I think the moral of the story, basically what I take away from today, is it's messaging for me, not so much who you are, what you believe in, gay, straight, black, white, doesn't matter. It's false messaging that bothers me more than the actual action or thing.
Right.
Then secondly, the idea that the Pope doesn't necessarily have to be the end-all be-all for me to believe in the Catholic faith.
Right.
Right. And then thirdly, forgiveness is individual.
Right. Yeah. And then I want to add one more thing just for you.
Yeah.
So I think you do have a skill set, and I'm being very honest.
Sure.
I think you have a skill set of calling out people's bluff. Like do you play poker?
I do.
You do. I bet you are good.
There's a game we play in this house called BS.
BS. Oh, I know BS. We should do a game at the end.
We should do a game.
And you probably win a lot. Yeah. But I think if you have that gift that God has given to you, like, in a loving way, you have to call everyone out, even me.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't like my cassock, say, Father, I don't like what you're wearing, or whatever.
Actually, I dig it.
You like it?
It's a good look.
Yeah, I just for you.
Just came off fresh off the stage.
Right off, straight up. I just came right over and hang. I like the suit jacket.
Thank you. A little more proper today.
Looking good. Good.
My wife said I needed to shave and dress nice.
You're looking great. You're looking always good.
Here I am.
Well, this is good. Yeah. A lot of other cool things to talk about in the other podcast, but I love your conclusions. Just want to add that last piece which
Right
I
on.
think it's a skill that we can develop over time. So
Love it.
yeah, good stuff. This is Collared.
Uncollared. Thanks for joining us.
In this episode, we talked about forgiveness. Sometimes there are grave offenses and we don't know how to forgive the other person. Even we ask, can God forgive me on this? Or can God forgive this, I don't know, serial killer? And what comes to mind is the episode of the prodigal son, right? A father who loves both sons, but they don't realize his love. The first one goes off and spends elaborately different things and realize, oh my gosh, I'm doing a lot of bad things. And so out of guilt, he returns and he sort of misses the idea of who his father is, who's loving, who will always accept him. And the older son who lives in the house, but lives like a servant. He doesn't see his father as someone who will give him whatever he needs. So these broken relationships don't go to the core of father-son relationship. So in the situation of forgiveness, number one, we need to be repentant. We need to understand what's going on, and we need to understand who we're offending. And number two, to ask for forgiveness, and that way we can forgive. So in relationship to God, please, understand where you've been, how much he loves you, and ask for that forgiveness. And on the other end, see those who have offended you, what relationship you have to them, so to also give them pardon. I think those two things can help us, inspire us to move forward, and together we can move as a family. That's the end goal. Forgiveness builds union and family together. So God bless you all, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.